Hello, everyone, and welcome to Rock Rants. My name is Ryan, joined as always by.
Smiggy.
And do I still sound like a robot? I'm just leaving this in.
No.
Are we good? All right, cool. We had a little technical difficulties, but we're here. Today, we're talking about.
We had
Islander.
a little technical difficulty after we went live. We have technical difficulties that we still have not fixed behind the scenes, but that's fine. If you're an audio listener, you'll never know the difference.
Yeah, it's all good. But today we're talking about a band named Islander and their latest album, which came out in 2024, called Grammy Nominated. For a little bit of background, I love Islander, one of my favorite bands of all time. But I think, Smiggy, you were very familiar with Islander going into this. Is that correct?
I was more familiar with the Lonely Island and the Island Boys than I was with Islander. Truth be told, the only real piece of knowledge I had on them, I know I have listened to songs of theirs in the past, maybe a handful, somewhere between like 2 and 5. But the only thing I knew about them necessarily was back when we did the AI episode, because I believe the genesis of us even talking about that stuff was through Islander using things like visualizers or whatever they're called. Maybe I just butchered the name there, but these AI related or adjacent, I don't know the proper term, instruments that help them with their music videos and stuff like that. But so beyond that conversation again that we seem to rehash every single week, I didn't really know anything about them. So diving into this album was my first real exposure to the band.
Okay, so yeah, they were definitely brought up in the AI episode. I think you might be thinking of Starset. They were the ones who used it for like music videos and stuff like that, but they definitely got brought up because this album, Grammy nominated, they used AI for their album cover. So they said that later on that it was AI. And they said that, oh, this was to represent like the fakeness of the music industry, this and that. I think there's better ways to go about it. I don't think they meant any harm by it, or anything like that. But yeah, so it's just their cover. I couldn't tell. I had no idea that it was AI, which is scary, but yeah.
And I'm not going to dive down the rabbit hole of AI again, but like, for what? This is so normal. I guess like you probably wanted to look photorealistic or something like that, but
yeah,
that doesn't seem like you could have did it the right way. Anyway,
I think if you wanted to go about the fakeness of the music industry by using AI, you could have hired a real artist to create an image that looked AI. In some kind of explicit way to where like you knew it was done by a real artist, or I don't know. There's several ways you could have gone about it, but I don't know. Yeah. They're also I'm not going to say they're a small band. They've had success and everything like that, but I do know that when they make their music videos, so there's a song that we're going to talk about later called "What a Time to Be Alive." They recorded a music video just one day on tour on their iPhones. So I mean, it's not like they don't use big budget kind of
right. They don't even have the expectation, video,
things like that. So yeah, which I personally cool. Like when I watched the video, I couldn't tell that they just made it on their iPhones. But point being, they might not spend like a huge budget on things like music videos or studio time or whatever it might be. Maybe they were trying to save money when it came to creating the cover. But yeah, I'm glad we got the AI topic. Just right into it. But
just immediately in record there, that's on your bingo card. This was record time.
Yeah, so this was their 4th studio album. They had Violence and Destruction, which came out in 2014, Power Under Control in 2016, It's Not Easy Being Human in 2022, then Grammy nominated 2024. Personally, being a longtime Islander fan because I discovered them from their first album, this one might be my favorite. I mean, Violence and Destruction is really, that one was the number one, and I thought nothing was going to top that. But I don't know. I have such a hard time going back and forth, especially because Violence and Destruction is nostalgic for me now. But yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and say that I loved this one. It's Not Easy Being Human, the one before it, which I'll get into a little bit later on. It's probably my least favorite of theirs. So it was really refreshing coming off something like, oh, okay, I'm not sure what direction they're heading, and then getting something like Grammy nominated. So yeah, I love this. Like we said before, it's almost 2 years old by now. It's about a year and a half old. The guys have gone fully independent. They're not signed with anyone. They are producing their own music at their own pace. So I'm hoping that means, because there's like a 6-year gap between a couple of their albums, I'm hoping we don't have to wait 6 years for the next one. So yeah, first initial thoughts, I love it. But And we're not talking about me, the guy who loves Islander already. We want to get to the opinion of someone who's listening to them for their first time. So what do you think?
We don't. We actually are gonna get way more of your opinions today than we are mine. But I think you'll be like I told you before we recorded that you won't expect everything I have to say about this band. I do think there's something poetic about the idea that the album is called Grammy nominated. We obviously just talked about a Grammy winning band last week, and the idea of like more modern mainstream metal and where it's heading, this, that, the other, and with the kind of end argument for Turnstile being it doesn't feel like what they're doing is going to lead to a good next album. And now we have a band that you are saying had that problem and is now giving you the next album that seems to have fixed it. And we said that about a few bands recently. So maybe there is more hope. And for me, the initial thoughts I think are very interesting because I bashed the shit out of, we're past 2 minutes. Yes, we are. Bash the shit out of modern metal in the way that I thought it was going if a band like Turnstile was winning Grammys. It made me feel pretty sad about the state of my favorite genre. Islander very much so changed that perspective. I think because even I can't remember. Oh, it was in our Discord channel where we put all of our topics. Saul was listening to the Turnstile episode, and I was like, just unabated. Just I could not have disliked this album more. If I tried, I couldn't. I was trying. I put it in the bowels of hell, only down there with the Velvet Shit Show, and for good reason, I think. But then you chimed in and said if you are pretty upset about the state of modern metal, Islander might not be for you. So I was pretty hesitant going into this. Hesitant's not the right word because I had to listen to it, but I didn't know what to expect, but I wasn't expecting good. But I think the more I listened to it, the more I kind of thought that this is what I want modern mainstream metal to be. It has this same thing we talk about so many weeks in a row now, this atmospheric tone that we see so much more in this modern age, but they're still not afraid to plant their feet firmly on the ground that was tread by their forefathers and just hit the heavy chords, hit the harsher vocals. I think Islander are definitely a bit more traditional than a man of my tastes would prefer. Not to be a giant hipster about it, but I think they are still a bit more traditional than a band that I would put in my upper echelon personally. So that's very subjective, but they ride the line very, very well. There's a real purpose behind every song. You can tell it in their vocals that they truly believe in the art that they're making. What I liked a lot is that they do, I don't know how to make it make sense, but in a way they have all of these elements of past bands like Limp Bizkit and Skillet on songs like Kayfabe. There's so many of these elements of older genres of rock mixed in, but it still makes it sound like you're hearing it for the first time in 2026. So I'm curious where this theme came from. The old age of metal was all about brain melting chords, harsh vocals, fast shredding. Today we see much more of a focus, giving the listener a feeling like they're floating as a subconscious version of themselves through a field of stars, ethereally echoing voices in the distance, and a constant feeling that there's a search for meaning. But again, Islander took the new age and the old age and just mashed it together, and that sounds like it would be insanely sloppy, but it worked on pretty much every song. I was just impressed. I don't think there was ever really a point where I was like 10 out of 10, but I don't think there was ever a point where I was below like a 5 out of 10.
Yeah. What you're saying about blending the old and the new, when they first came around, their biggest song they first had was a song called Coconut Dracula. And everyone who heard that one was like, oh, this sounds like if Deftones and POD had a baby. And they were always getting the Deftones and POD comparison. And I guess it's not totally unfair because, I mean, they've had Sonny from POD on several songs before. They've cited that Deftones are an influence. But the thing is, I think that they take their influences and they do enough to make it their own. Because if I'm really feeling like listening to Deftones, listening to Islander doesn't scratch that itch for me, and vice versa. If I really want to listen to Deftones or POD, listening to Islander doesn't, it just doesn't do that for me. So I think you're right. You take their influences that they had and they make it their own. and I can appreciate that. And I especially appreciate it on this one because to go into the history a little bit, I couldn't find this written down anywhere. I must have listened to it in an interview somewhere. But It's Not Easy Being Human, the one before this, which came out in 2022, there was such a big gap between there because they were signed with a record label, and the record label, long story short, was basically meddling a lot, trying to tell them what to do, how to write the songs. You know, they need to be more radio friendly. They need this, they need that. Promised that they were going to promote it and they were going to be huge and blah, blah, blah. Same kind of stuff that we hear about the music industry. And then on the day that it came out, I guess they didn't see it being promoted anywhere. It wasn't on any websites. It wasn't on, YouTube, stuff like that. And they asked their label, what's going on here? And apparently they're like, oh, I guess we didn't, no one told you, but we dropped you yesterday. So 2022, they spent all this time, they made all these changes. They tried to make more radio friendly songs and they got dropped. So that's why they went completely independent. They actually did a GoFundMe where they hit their goal to record and produce Grammy nominated on their own, and they did their own thing. So instead of making what you and I keep calling radio rock, which unfortunately a lot of their songs on It's Not Easy Being Human, that's what it sounded like to me. And I actually sent you one of their songs, What Do You Gotta Lose, which I like that song a lot. I think it's a standout from the last album, but yeah, it's more like softer stuff that you think you would hear that's more like safe. So when this came out, I really appreciated the heaviness and everything behind it. It sounded more like they were making music that they wanted to rather than music they were being told to.
Yeah, I like I said, it feels like a weird way to describe something because it's not a tangible thing to say. But earlier I said that you can tell that there is a belief in the lyrics that they're singing, in the instrumentals that they're playing. I said last week the same thing about Turnstile, that they were so arrogantly confident in the wrong thing. I think Islander, they're not arrogant about it, but they're very confident in this. Actually, you know what? Here's a question, because you are an island boy. That I find it hard to believe that you could even narrow Islander down to a specific type or genre, or say like this is their quote unquote style. Because like I said, you have these elements of Limp Bizkit, Skillet. I said the song Weight of the World, it reminds me of an advanced version of like a 2006 punk band. Ritual of Death comes out the gate like Megadeth or something like that. They have so many different elements that they make work so well that I guess the two-part question is, does this sound like old Islander? And would you even be able to say what old Islander sounds like, or is it just you get what you get in every song?
Yeah, I'm going to bring it back to a few episodes ago when we did a Mice and Men. So I have it on vinyl somewhere. They had an EP called Pains, and then their first album, Violence and Destruction, they had the Blomp Womp and the Berbers. They had it, and it was great.
Wait, we figured out the name for one of those. I can't remember what it is.
It wasn't Genty. So I remember we said it like gent is the way to kind of summarize that.
Yeah.
It wasn't like that sort of style, but it was that tone. So anyway, they had it. They had a different, actually completely. Mikey, the singer, is the only consistent member. There's been lots of members to come through Islander, but it's kind of interesting getting just a new flavor on every record with every new band member that comes through. But anyway, that one stood out to me the most, and they had a really unique guitarist, drummer, bassist that all just fit really well together, and everybody left. So those three members left, new people came in, and actually they have some ties to Avenged Sevenfold. Aaron from Avenged Sevenfold, when he got let go from them, joined Islander, and he recorded their second album, Power Under Control, with them. And their guitarist at the time was a guy in a band called Love and Death, which is also the band of the guitarist from Korn. So all of these past, Korn, Avenged Sevenfold, Deftones, B.O.D., you're getting even more influences coming into the second album. But basically, I'm saying this because in the second album, the Blomp Blomps and Berbers left with the new members, and it was almost more like punk, if I had to say. And it's not that I didn't like it, but it was like, oh, okay, this isn't what I'm used to, but it's fine. It's not bad. And the third album, I already explained all of this. It's Not Easy Being Human. It was more radio friendly. Still love Islander, still supporting them. Like, these guys are still great, but it's not what I'm used to. And that's what I mean. They brought it back with this one. And especially with them being independent and just making the music they want to make, it's not been as big of a revolving door with members here recently. So it's kind of nice to have some consistency as well, I bet. So I don't know. We could even see a new album this year. They only waited 2 years between the last two, so who knows? I hope they stick in this direction. But to answer your point, it's kind of hard to narrow down exactly what they sound like because they've changed so much with every album.
I wonder, it's something that was just floating around in my head because I caught myself, it might have been with Turnstile. I catch myself all the time actually doing this with bands that when they actually, the System of a Down, or I guess, what the heck, Scars on Broadway, where I wanted them so badly to sound like System that I think I let that affect my overall view of the band. I wonder if a band like Islander not sticking to a specific sound, I wonder if that's better or worse in like the placebo effect in people's minds where they're, because like when I listen to an Avenged Sevenfold song, I'm expecting not the same thing every time. We talked about the nuances of switching up your style and trying new things all the time, but I expect a certain consistency out of a full album of theirs. With Islander, I think like you kind of just confirmed, you don't really have that expectancy or expectation, whatever the fucking proper word is there. But either way, you don't have that expectation. So I wonder if that's even better because it's like, you have liked so much of what this band has put out because they find a way to make it mesh that you can just get excited that they are releasing music, period, rather than the expectation of what it's supposed to be. Just, which again, that's almost one of those things that's like just word vomit just for pure thought and almost doesn't need discussion. But it does make me think because again, clearly I let that affect me with Scars on Broadway. We're all human. I wonder to what degree this plays for them. But let me ask you this. I
see what you mean now.
Let me ask you this. How did you find out about this band, and what about them made you keep coming back for more?
So I used to read or get on Loudwire back in the day, especially in college, like waiting in between classes and stuff. I'd sit there at my laptop and Loudwire just had a bunch of rock and metal news and tour announcements, and that's how I would find out if bands were coming around and stuff like that. And Brian Welch, head from Korn, he used to have a little segment on there where he'd interview people, and it said interviewing Mikey from Islander on their new song Coconut Dracula. And when I heard Islander and the song is Coconut Dracula, what type of music would you guess it would be? Would you guess it would be like a metal?
No, I would actually think thing? Like Lonely Island or something like that.
I thought
like
it would be that or like reggae or something.
Yeah, fair.
I decided, I'm like, okay, with a name like Coconut Dracula, I got to look it up. So when I heard that song, it was just super unique. The guitarist that they had at the time, if I'm remembering correctly, he didn't use a pick. He would only use like this finger style. And if you listen to the verse of that, it's like these high notes that don't really sound like any other guitarist, but it got heavy when he wanted it to be, like in the bridge and stuff like that. So it's just unique. Like I know they had Deftones and POD influences, but it wasn't like other bands that I had listened to at the time. Bands that I call like the Warped Tour bands, like of Mice and Men back in the day and all that. So yeah, it was just unique, and I added them to get you remember Pandora?
Oh my god!
Before the Spotify days. Yeah, I was still using Pandora at the time in 2014, and I added like an Islander radio where it would play similar stuff, and their songs would just keep coming on, and I'm like, okay, these guys are really good. Not to keep going on and on about it, because I know I've already been on how the origins of this band, but shortly after discovering them, they actually came to town. And it's the first small show that I've been to. So the only shows I've been to were like at arenas, or there's a place by me called Riverbend where it's like a huge venue and stuff like that. This one, they were at this place in Kentucky called the Thompson House, where it's literally like in the basement of a house. There's a stage down there.
Yes.
And I saw them down there. They opened for Red. And it was just crazy because instead of having these like crazy lights and like fog and fire and all this sort of stuff, these guys came out here and set up their own equipment. So it's like, okay, there they are. They're just
we like that,
setting their stuff up, doing their own sound check. They turn towards the crowd, and Mikey's like, I think we're ready. And they just start playing. It's just like raw. There was no like crazy shit like stage tech whatever I'm looking for. Like I said before, pyrotechnics or anything like that. Just a really like small, intimate metal show, and it was awesome. He would like
Nice.
get out there and walk on the crowd and stuff like that. So people would hold him up while he was like walk as far as he could and then fall crowd surf back to the stage. Yeah, it was really cool. They invited someone to come up and play guitar on one of their songs. It was someone from the meet and
That's a
greet.
dream come true.
Yeah, and the guy from the meet and greet said that he could play some of their songs. So during the show, they're like, "Hey, you! Like we saw you earlier. Come on up." So they're just
imagine he gets caught in a lie right there. What do you do?
Yeah.
Like as soon as they call you, and you're like, oh no. Like do you just you leave? Do you go up and just bomb? What do you do?
Break your own finger so you have an excuse. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, that happened, and then a couple years later, they put out that second album, and for a while, they were coming to venues near me pretty frequently. But before this podcast, before we started recording, I started to think about the last time I saw them, and it was before COVID, so it was like 2019, something like that. They haven't come near me in a while, so I miss them. I miss the Islander shows because they're always like super high energy, always a lot of good stuff going on. So yeah, great live shows, great first impressions on music.
You got to hit him with that you up text. You missed him that bad. So let me immediately fire another question into your brain. And it's usually the part of the review that I dive deeper into. But again, I'm going to put you on a spot here. Do you think that this album plays better at, how many songs is this? 11. Do you think this album plays better as 11 individual pieces of art, or do you think that the story to be told, audio listeners, I'm putting up air quotes here, the story to be told is a better product? So I know, I'm sure you already know what I'm talking about, but to further elaborate, some of these albums that we cover, you can clearly tell are almost something like 11 singles just placed on an album because they're all good songs. And then you have albums like Life is But a Dream that is clearly telling a story the whole way through. I want your take on the idea of, is this album meant to be listened to as an album or 11 individual songs?
I think it's just 11 individual songs. I don't, unless I'm overlooking something, because I've also listened to albums before. You mentioned Skillet before. They have an album called Rise that they say is a concept album. I have no clue how that, there's no way that it's a concept album. Like, I think they're lying. So I could just like not be reading in between the lines or, you know, connecting the dots. But no, I think this is just 11 great songs that they wrote and decided the track order to put them on. And I mean, you can listen to song number 9 any time of the day or song 1. And I don't think there's a cohesive story or anything, any kind of statement they're trying to make. Like how you said, Avenged Sevenfold has Life is But a Dream. It's a loose concept. Yeah, this is just, I think they just made 11 bangers and put them on an album together. Funny enough, at one of the shows, because these guys are so awesome, they just like hang out at their merch table. You can go talk to them if you want after their set's done. And we've done that a few times, just gone and talked to the guys there. And when we asked them about an album one time, the singer told us that they were toying with the idea of never putting out an album again and only releasing singles. So instead of an album every 2 or 3, 4 years, he was just like once every 3 months or so, you get a new song. So I guess that must have just been an idea that they scrapped because they came out with a new album. But
but they came out with a new album of 11 singles. So, and that wasn't trying to lead you into anything. I think I honestly don't have too many thoughts on the matter for that aspect, but I think I agreed because, like I said, I listened to this a few times. I don't know, more than Turnstile, less than others is what I'd say. But I caught myself every single time letting 2 or 3 songs after the album playing because just didn't really know where it ended or whatever. But usually that indicates a bad thing. Usually that means they all have blended together or they all sound the same. Or I just forgot to keep paying attention because the album was boring as hell. I did kind of just drift into I think the best way to say it is I thought every single song on this album was a really good middle album song. Like when you get to like the 5th, 6th, 7th track of an album and it's just like, okay, we're coasting here. We'll get to the end. We'll get you back jumping a little bit, running through walls. Maybe we'll find a way to end this thing. But we're in the middle right now. Let's enjoy our time. I feel like every song is that, but it's a good version of that.
Okay, that's a good way to put it. So do you think this could have, I have my opinions on it, but I'll ask you first. Do you think this could have benefited from like how we said the stage has acoustic-y, slower songs? On Life is But a Dream, you have like Cosmic during it. For Baby Metal, even you have Sunset Kiss and these slower songs that aren't just straight heaviness, whatever. Do you think this could have benefited from something that was slower to kind of shake it up a little bit, or do you like that everything sounded like a middle album song? Just kind of
I have
balls to
my
the wall.
comically large cigarette that is actually just
do
a
that.
giant wooden pencil that I've had for 4 years unsharpened. What is this even for? No idea, not branded. Anyway, I got this whole. I have a new desk now, and there's just really like no place to put this, so it's just kind of out in the open at the moment. Anyway, oh, audio listeners, Ryan just showed his vibrator. That's so cool. I have a whole. I'm gonna get lost.
You have a whole a whole row of vibrators.
I have a whole. Yes, and here is one of my anal beads in the shape of a boo from Mario's stress ball. It's a very firm stress ball to boot too. To get to your question though, that I'll be honest. Oh, okay. The idea was would they have benefited from having some change
like
of pace songs
or something? Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is the one example of an album that I'm very okay with the idea that they didn't change anything up, because every single one of their songs has an amalgamation of genres already melted down into it. I'm struggling to find the words to properly explain what I mean in that regard, so I'm going to keep it very base level in my vernacular for it. But again, you have your Skillets, your Limp Bizkits, your 2006 punk bands, the what is that song called? Tribute to Death or Ritual of Death?
Ritual of Death.
That opens as a very traditional heavy metal grunge kind of, and it just rips your fucking face off. In every song, it finds a way to incorporate at least a few elements of different genres so effortlessly, so seamlessly, so impressively that I don't need a song to change it up so drastically, because every other song already changes it up in the song, or at least combines things that makes it sound fresh. Like I say, it's so weird to have an album that's just all middle songs that are good, and it's so weird to feel like I've heard this a million times before, but it's one of the better versions of what I've heard a million times before.
I feel the same way about it that I do about Bloody Wood's album, about New Delhi, because they didn't have any slow songs on there. Like, they was just straight heavy songs the whole way through, but I think it worked and sounded good. I feel the same way about this one.
Yeah. So, A1 Day One, basic boy question here. Favorite song and why?
Oh man, probably Serpents and Daggers. So
That's the one that's playing in my ear right now.
I just think that it's one of their heavier ones that has like the kind of dirtier vocals and cleans at the same time, but it's not in the traditional like, okay, I'm going to scream a little bit for the verse and now we're going to do a clean chorus and this and that, which now that I'm thinking about it, I think is what they do. But I don't know. It just sounds different than other songs that follow that same kind of formula.
It's very like Bullet for My Valentine. You would find it on like an NHL game soundtrack.
Yeah, and they also have the higher screams in there. So his vocals used to be, and he'd do the screams kind of always lower, but this is one of the first times I heard him go to the higher ones. And I think the lyrics are cool. So when he says there's blood on the angel wings from serpents and daggers, I think he said he wrote it about his parents, because he's like, when you have people in your life like that who are doing what's best for you, like especially when you're a kid and you don't see the suffering they're going through by like protecting you or doing things for you. And I think he was just, comparing it to their, while his parents were going through a lot of struggles, they were making sure that him and his siblings and all that were happy, and, almost trying to hide it from them, the struggles and stuff that they had. So I just thought those were interesting lyrics. I don't think you see too much of that.
Yeah. Yeah. That is literally the meme of the soldier holding the thing up on the part where you're sleeping in bed.
Yes.
This is, I actually wonder, anybody, if we have get any comments on this, what I would be curious to know is, do people consider metal a a genre of depth. And what I mean by that is, do you find that in the lyrics of metal songs that there is a sufficient amount of analogy, symbolism? Because what I compare this to, and it's a lazy comparison, but it's the easiest one, is you listen to a rap song, right? And it's not to say that rap doesn't have any depth. Obviously it does, but it's very direct. It's very in your face. It's always, I am blank, like blank. I am something, and then compare it to something that is also like that. It's very direct and in your face. With metal, you find these, like literally the line you just gave, where you're saying essentially the same thing, or you're telling a story, but you're doing it almost in a more poetic way. And I wonder if that is the general conception of metal, because I came across a reel on Instagram, and of course the internet tells me one thing one time, so that must be what everybody thinks. So what it was obviously like engagement bait too, but the text on it was like, people say that metal can't have any depth or can't be poetic, or some version of what I just said. And my immediate thought was like, who the fuck says that?
Who says that?
I was like, I'm pretty sure a lot of people understand that metal, even when it's barbaric in meaning, when you have your Slayers or whatever, your Lamb of God, but even that's more poetic too. My point being, even when it's barbaric, they utilize language in such a more beautiful way. And I'm just wondering if that is the perception of metal as a whole, because I did like that about Islander specifically. I don't have any lyrics like you just pulled. I can't remember too many off the top of my head here, but I do remember being impressed by the flow, the rhythm of every song lyrically. Literally the vocal stylings that they pull out in every one. Like you just said, Serpents and Daggers, they use a variety of screams even in the same song. I thought that was really cool, but I did remember in the moments thinking that the lyrics were carrying me towards something. Not a full-blown story like we already discussed, but there was a poetry to it, is just the best way to say it.
A couple things, and then I'm going to ask you your favorite song if you had one, because I know you said you also let it play without realizing it was over. But I think part of the vocals also come from Mikey, their singer. His brother joined the band, so he's the bassist, and at least when we saw them live, he also did some of the vocals as well. I think that's helped them, and that could be, some of the vocal difference in there. But funny story, when he wasn't in the band when we saw them the first time back in 2015. And I didn't know who he was. I didn't know he was the singer's brother. He was working as their merch guy. So he used to do their merch, like for the show and all that. And when Mikey was hanging out at the booth and we bought something, my sister and I were like, hey, can we get a picture? And we had his brother take the picture. So their current bassist and vocalist took our picture with his brother, like the singer back in the day. Now he plays bass in there and provides some of those vocals. Second thing, when you talked about favorite song, honorable mention, because I almost went with which is the opening song. One, the drums on it are just insane. I love the way the drums sound on there. But two, I thought it was interesting because it was about addiction. And he didn't say it was about any certain type of addiction. And he's like, it can be drugs, alcohol, whatever your vice is. But I thought it was interesting comparing it to a witch kind of luring you in. And, it feels really awesome at first, or, things might be going well at first, but then by the end of the song, he's talking about being killed by the witch. So I don't know. It's not like it's super in depth or, super deep or anything like that, but just an interesting comparison.
I am always fascinated when metal bands sing about addiction, because so many metal bands have a drug or an alcohol or a sex problem, which I know sounds silly. Like, oh, why would you have a problem with sex? It's a real thing, obviously. Yeah. But addiction, even down to being addicted to sugar, or you watch those TLC My Strange Addiction shows and people are eating couch cushions and shit. Addiction in many forms everywhere. So just singing about it in general, I'm always a giant fan of, to always continue to shed light on it. My favorite song on this album was simply just Ritual of Death. What I liked about this album, which I actually thought was a really good song, what immediately turned my head into thinking, okay, this is going to be a good album, was the first song, was Witch, because what I found, I was listening to it. I was at my desk, I was playing a game or something. I just had it on in my headset, and I just found myself doing just like the little head nods to it involuntarily. I was like, oh. I forgot that I was listening to this for the sake of the podcast, and
Yeah.
went into I'm just listening to this mode. I was like, oh, that has to be a good thing, right? Like this is already making me do that. I forgot that I was doing this quote unquote for work. And then as I continued on, Ritual of Death, it hits that opening, and it's like it's very Buckethead-esque, where it's almost like you have that little button that like stops the sound of the guitar, and you're going out, you're making that thing go nuts on it, and it sounds so unbelievably cool. Those little breaks in the guitar, it gives me the chills. I love that sound. I don't know what it's called. I don't know. I'm like that kid on that that thing with the caramel in the middle. I don't know what you call it. Would you give me one of those things live? I'm gonna tear that up right now. And that's how I feel about that sound. And I also just recently saw a reel on Instagram, which is now telling me I spend too much time on my damn phone. That it was like the caption was like, when the metal drop is so hard, you have enough time to like run errands in between. And it's like you hit like the hard chord and then it's a pause, and then you hit the next chord and then it's a pause. And it was exaggerated in that it's at the beginning of this song too, and I usually don't like that. Quit teasing me. Put it in. I don't need foreplay. Just go. We're good. I promise. But for some reason, it opens so quick with that sound, and then it goes into that, and it had the right amount of space in between. The opening hooked me immediately. I was like, I want to know what this song is about, and then they just hit screams, which I'm not even always the biggest fan of screaming in metal, because sometimes I like to know what the fuck you're saying. But you can understand what they're saying for the most part in this song. So every element of this was just like, this is metal. This is metal TM. That's what this is what I want this to be. This makes me excited that if this is considered a more mainstream band and they're doing things like this, it was the opposite of Turnstile. I was like, if this is the direction or the influence that modern day metal gets, if Islander is the ones that that are youngins, the next generation continues to get to look to and be like, we want to do what they're doing, not what the other guys are doing. I like that. I like that a lot. I don't think that they'll ever be. That's a bad way to say that. I put mainstream metal in a lesser category than I do some of my favorite bands, and not out of again in a way of like being a hipster, but I like, obviously when you have your more niche bands, they will do things that will appeal to smaller audiences but at a greater severity. This, I think, doesn't need to even try that in the first place. I think they need to stay in the lane that they are in and continue to have the influence that they have because of songs like Witch, because of songs like Ritual of Death, where you were showing the rest of the scene that we can move past the hair metal bands. We can move past the super grungy chords, the thrash metal, the garage bands. We can evolve from that while still understanding why that got people to enjoy this genre so much in the first place. I think that is the most impressive part about Islander, is that they are not they are so desperately trying to move metal forward, but they're not trying to force it. They're like, we understand what made this so good before. We understand where we want this to go. How can we make those things coexist? And they found a way to do it very impressively in my mind.
So 2 questions. One, did you end up looking up what Ritual of Death was about?
I did not.
Okay. So it was about, apparently, like 30 years ago, these 3 elementary school boys were found murdered in the woods. And they didn't know, I don't know if they ever caught the killers or if it's still an open case or a case that was reopened, but there was something prevalent in the news about it when this song was made. And they made it for that reason. So a little depressing. I'm sorry if that ruined it for you, but...
I think you did this to me about a different song a couple hours ago too.
I'm sorry, but that's what Ritual of Death was about.
You were like, yeah, this song is about how he sold his brother to the devil or some shit. I was like, this sounded
smooth.
Yeah, it was actually. Yeah, that's right. It sounds like he's hitting the yeehaws and shit. You're telling me he sold his brother to the devil? No, that doesn't change. That does change my perspective on the idea of the song, but it makes sense based on the way that it sounds. I'm not, this sounds, what I'm about to say is dumb, but I don't know. I think that's a good way to do it.
Yeah, it doesn't ruin it for you. And the other thing, since you said their metal it's going in a good direction when bands like Islander are doing their thing, does this make you want to go back and listen to anything they've done in the past? Or are you good? And I'm not taking offense either way. Are you good where you're at right now? And it'll just like, yeah, when the next one comes out, I'll check it out. Like, how do you feel about it?
I'm curious to see the last album that you said was not all that great, because I want to see. The short answer is yes. The long answer is I'm curious to listen to them for different reasons, because I want to listen. You said this is their fourth album, right?
Yeah.
So that's not even a lot to go back and listen to. So the first album, it could be a number of things.
10
It's
out
your
of
first
10.
album. You can't, but at least like style wise is what I'm driving at. I'm sure it has elements of who you're trying to be, but everybody's first album is going to evolve into something greater down the road. So the second album, I'd be more curious to see what they were trying to morph themselves into within this broad spectrum that I think they are trying to get.
Yeah.
Which then for the third album, if you're saying that it's not as great and it tried a few different things that just didn't work, whatever, I would like to see how they failed, because now that I've listened to this album, I could immediately understand how they then went back and changed it. So to get into the psyche of the band a little bit, I'd be curious to see what their creative process is, to see how excited I would be for the next album. But if they were able to have a quote unquote flop to whatever degree the last album was, then to come to this, which I think I'm just going to give my rating right now, which I think was a solid 7 out of 10.
Okay.
If you're able to kind of look your own mistakes in the face, or keep trying new things, but not so drastically that every other album is now going to be a flop, I'm curious to see what the evolution is now looked like. So the short answer is yes, I will go back and listen to it, and I am excited for the next album. But now I want to know what goes on in their brains. Like, what is their creative process to see what I could expect? Are they going to go back and try way too many different things now again, and have another quote unquote flop album? I'm saying this as somebody who hasn't listened to it yet, but have another flop album. Or are they a band that doesn't make the same mistake twice, and they're going to continue to elevate? So
Yeah,
again,
and
short answer, yes. Long answer, all of that.
it doesn't, and don't get me wrong, like they have some good songs on the last one. They have like We Scream and What Do You Gotta Lose, the one I sent you, and The Outsider, but there's just a lot of them in there that it didn't. I always say that, oh, I want bands to change it up and do something new and this and that, but I think they just changed it up in the wrong way for a couple of them. So it was nice seeing them back to their form. So yeah, if we're giving ratings, this is a 9 out of 10 for me. I love this. It's one of my favorite albums. Like I said, it's hard between this and Violence and Destruction. I'm wondering, does Violence and Destruction, do I just have that nostalgia because I was 20 when it came out and in college and saw that awesome show like I talked about where they just came out and did their thing? I don't know. It's tough. The reason I'm giving it a 9 is because I think Dark Ride and Kayfabe, while they're not the worst songs, I'd give those like 7 out of 10s. Like they're my two least favorite ones. I don't go back and listen to those just on their own that often. Or else this would have been a 10 out of 10. Like if those two songs, like if I had enjoyed them more, yeah, this would have been a solid. I love everything about this album. But yeah, 9 out of 10 for me. And if I can just tell one more Islander story
Yeah.
before the end of this. One of the times that I saw them live was at a place called the Mad Frog in Cincinnati. It's like near UC and it's not around anymore. So they tore the building down. But either way, it was on a Wednesday night. They were supposed to go on at, I think, 8:30 or 9 p.m. And the venue, without Islanders' knowledge, booked about 4 or 5 local bands to go on before them. So when you're at a bar, smaller show, 4 or 5 local bands, and then your 2 openers that you brought with you, and everyone's setting up and tearing down their own equipment and doing their own sound check. By the time Islander went on a Wednesday night, it was midnight. So you can imagine the bar had emptied out by then. So
Yeah.
when Islander finally went up, because they were the headliners, it was me, my sister, 3 other people, and then the opening bands that Islander had brought with them, which were the Funeral Portrait and I can't remember the other one. But either way, it was just me, my sister, 3 other people, and then the openers watching
private
Islander
house
up
show.
there. They played the show like they were in an arena in front of a packed house. They put everything they had into it for like the people who stayed and stuck around. They brought us up on stage for the last few songs and we just like rocked out with them on stage for the last couple things.
Hey.
As the song ended, he dropped his mic and we all just walked back to the merch booth and hung out and talked for like another half an hour. It was like 2 a.m. by that point, 1:30. It was great. Point is, these guys are awesome. They are in it for the love of the game. Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to say it like, oh, only this many people showed up. It was just an unfortunate
No,
situation, but it was really
no.
cool of them to still play their heart out for the people who did stick around.
But I think that's so interesting to me actually, because I think that's opening up my third eye that I keep hidden under my headband here. I think it we talk a lot about in content creation as a whole, you can or just in life in general, honestly, it doesn't have to apply to content, but you can tell when somebody's being genuine. And you can tell when the genuinity, I'm butchering the English language today, and that's okay. You can tell when that sense of being genuine affects or comes into play into somebody's craft. It just, again, it's a silly thing to try and have to explain because it sounds very intangible. It sounds very subjective, but you can tell. Again, I'll use the example from our streaming life. When somebody is just clocking into that 9 to 5 because they think this is going to be a job that pays bills, even though it won't be. Or you could find people like Saul who will only go on for an hour and 45 minutes, but it's an hour and 45 minutes of love of the game, like you just said. And you can tell that there is a baked in, made with love aspect to things. And I'm wondering now if Turnstile and Islander are even that different, or if what I'm seeing is a sense of genuine love of their craft from Islander, whereas maybe Turnstile is treating this more of a, we're going to be a good mainstream metal band, whatever that's supposed to mean kind of thing.
Yeah.
Speculation, of course, again, but hearing a story like that, my first thought wasn't even, 5 people left for them, that must be a flop. No, my thought was, when you got to the point of them playing it like an arena show, that's fucking awesome, because how many bands would look at that and either just be like, all right, we'll play a normal show, not even normal, downgraded show, or just leave, or just fucking leave. So
we're packing up and heading to the next city, like before it gets too late, sort of thing.
Right.
But
and to take the time to talk with people, invite people to say, you can tell that sense of, I'm going to say it again, genuinity applies to their craft. And maybe that is why I like this album so much, because I don't know. I'm a big vibes guy. I'm a big feelings guy. I'm a big neurodivergent guy. These things matter to me. The way your brain ticks, the way your heart feels matter to me. So when I can tell that somebody is doing this for the quote unquote right reasons, it instantly makes me like them more, because I think that makes your ceiling a lot higher. I think you're not limiting yourself to looking at ones and zeros as to why this might work. I like, even when some of the individual tracks started to blur together on this album, it never dragged. There was still something to it. It moves with purpose. It felt cohesive. It didn't even, like I said, to me, the album didn't even have a standout, but it still demanded that I replay the entire album. It was, I don't know, I could continue to rant in all the same words that I've already said, but it just made it so impressive to me that I didn't find any part of this album to be a 10 out of 10, and it's a mainstream album, but I was still like, this is the most pure 7 out of 10 good album I think I have ever heard.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I don't know. Now I'm wondering if we did go back and listen to another one, because I do think that this one is just heavy, kind of balls to the wall from the start, to where the Power Under Control, especially, I think they do switch it up in their songs more, and there's more ups and downs in the album. So I wonder which one you'd like better, this consistent 7 out of 10, or like Power Under Control, where in my opinion it might dip to a 5, but then goes back up to a 10 and then a 7, and then, so I don't know. Maybe it doesn't have to be anytime soon. Maybe one day we'll go back and look at one of their old ones. I mean, the 10th anniversary of Power Under Control is this year, so we can see when that is and do a little 10-year anniversary or something. But just
we'll
an
put
idea
it on the list. And that makes me even more excited, because if you're going to have a band that has an expansive catalog, you have to have albums that have 5s and 10s, because the 10s are the ones that you end up putting on your playlist. Whereas, like, I'll be honest, I don't think I'm going to save any of the songs from this album. Maybe I'll save Ritual of Death. I don't know, maybe 1 or 2. But when you have albums that have 5s and 10s, yeah, I'm never going to listen to the 5s again, but I'm putting the 10s on my playlist. So if you could have an album like this and that, I think that would only make me like the band even more. It would suck to hear the flops, obviously, because you have to judge them by their worst as well. But when you have, when you have so few, you can get away with that. So I'll be curious, but I definitely will be listening to more of this band. It was, like I said, it's mainstream, but it's one of the best versions I've heard of mainstream. And there's nothing wrong with being mainstream. I keep saying it like it's a slur, but there's nothing wrong with being mainstream. It's just, I'm never a lot of people aren't always the biggest fan of the common denominator. You want something that applies more directly to you. Like I said, the more niche things that apply to less people, but at a higher severity. I'm one of those people that falls into that more often than not. So there's nothing wrong if you like mainstream. And again, it just made it even more impressive to me that this was mainstream and such a good version of it. So I think my final note on the matter is ultimately this seems like it's Islander refining their formula more than reinventing it. If you could even say they have one. It's bold, it's fun, it's full of movement. It's just a little bit shy of being really great, but it's a strong 7 out of 10, and it proves that, you know, they kind of carved out their lane, and even if they haven't fully broken through their ceiling yet, I think the ceiling is pretty high for them.
Fair enough. Yeah. I mean, I think I went over several reasons why I love these guys' music and why just the times we've got to see them and talk briefly with them after shows. They just seem like genuine great guys who love what they do, and I can't wait to hear what's next from them. So that's it from us.
That is it from us. We actually do kind of know what we're gonna. No, wait, we know exactly what we're gonna do next week. We're getting horny live on the podcast, and we're maximizing our horniness, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I'm gonna say yes, but I don't remember what we're doing.
Maximize the hormone.
Oh yeah, maximum the hormone. That's right.
Or maximum, whatever it's called. Apparently, I don't even know.
That
Is what we're doing, though. We are. I'm not even going to share the idea of why we're doing what we're doing because it will sound bad if I explain it, I think. But we have an idea for what we want to do within the next few episodes here. So hopefully you guys enjoy that. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff that everybody throughout all the 2000s told you to do on YouTube, even though it was proven that you should only tell people to do one thing at a time because then they get overloaded and do none of them.
Comment, please.
If you enjoyed it, comment. Let us know what you want to see. Let us know what you want to hear. Let us know if you never want to hear us again. And to the other Rock Rant podcasts that we found, we're coming for you. We're coming for you. Thank you all for rocking with us. This was Rock Rant's Islander Grammy nominated. I'm one half of Rock Rant's Smiggy, joined as always by my lovely co-host.
The second half, Smiggy, Ryan. Until next time.
This is Smiggy. Love you all. See you next time.